Hello, my name is Tobias and I'm working for Extreme Group in Sales and Business Development. I'm very happy to have with me my colleague Harald from Extreme Media, Development Director and based in Vienna. Hello, Harald.
Hello.
And also very happy to welcome again our steady guest for this morning, Aurélien Brelle, co-founder and sales director of Woody Technologies. Hello again, Aurélien.
Hello again, Tobias.
So this session is about managing challenges when dealing with non-professional content, and I'm very happy to have both of you with me. Harald is expert also for transcoding and development of various workflows and much more. I'm happy that you announced that yourself. And Aurélien, also the same with Woody Technologies and ingest experts and also in all consulting about ingest. So maybe quickly, could you introduce yourself a bit more profound than I did it, please?
No problem. So I am a professional developer in area of video, audio, and of course workflow, especially focused on broadcasters. So the big broadcasters are basically our customers. I am kind of head of development of Extreme Media, and we've got like 15 years experience in that area. That's what I do.
Great, thank you. And Aurélien, maybe for this session also a bit more from your background.
So yes, of course, I'm the sales manager at Woody Technologies. We are doing software solutions focusing on ingest, publishing, transcoding, transfer of content across various systems. So yeah, dealing with non-professional sources is one of the challenges we need to address.
Great, so let's start. Harald, the first question for you, so now we are on script again. What are the most common problems your customers have while dealing with various types of formats?
Well, the most common
Yeah, we have a limited time.
The most common thing is what you struggle most with is more or less the number of different flavors that are out there. You know, there are so many different devices and programs and whatever that can produce or record a video file. Some of them very professional, expensive servers, the other ones some cheap cameras or just some freeware software or whatsoever. So this majority of different file formats is more or less bringing the basic problem to us. So even not only that, but also each and every single device, of course, supports different profiles, and all of that needs to be brought together into one normalized format before you can go to an edit with them. Especially the programs and products that are on consumer level, they are pretty often not following the standards, let me say so. And getting around all those little problems that they cause, that might be one of the biggest troubles. Also, we have different issues between broadcasters' devices, so that the expensive devices in interchange, and often we need to help customers to repair some parts of their files or something like that in order to make them compatible to each other again.
Is that the same experience you have, Aurélien?
Yes, we have the very similar experience. All the non-professional devices which are capturing source are bringing complexity in the workflows. As Aaron said very well, we need at some point to standardize things to have them compatible with the rest of the broadcast ecosystem. And with the non-professional sources, we have various frame rates, various aspect ratios, often non-16:9 aspect ratios coming in. We have sometimes some field ordering problems, or just a problem of the quality of the capture that can be not accurate with what you expect for the rest of the workflow.
And is especially this, I understand in a more professional surrounding, you can calculate with what formats is to be expected, but in the more non-professional surrounding, you cannot really calculate with that. Is there already an automatism, Harald, in the modern software that still kind of recognizes that easily?
It depends a little, of course. The more modern the softwares are, the more abilities they provide to do different analysis and come around different problems. Especially our transcoder Cambria FTC has built-in massive amounts of built-in analysis that can give you some information about codec types and picture, even content based stuff, resolution, field aspect ratio, and all this kind of stuff. You can also even create automatically an export profile matching a special import source.
So this is all by kind of development and knowledge over years then that they can establish this kind of automatism in the software.
Of course, what else?
Aurélien, when we think about this kind of sources, what are the most challenging sources you can think of if you talk about the consumer shooting devices?
I think that generally the content shot with the smartphones is the most challenging. The one shot with drones a little bit as well. But everything that is similar to a smartphone to shoot content is challenging because the content can often have a variable frame rate, which is not something we want in the broadcast ecosystem. You have also the vertical content that you need to deal with, and the vertical content is we cannot say it's not the norm anymore. It's kind of the norm, but we still need to deal with these kind of sources in the standard post-production workflow, which brings some challenges. And also what we see is that when you have all these sources, and especially smartphones, one now with the higher and higher quality of shooting of the smartphone, is that you have a lot of down and upscaling operations required because often now by default you will get a 4K footage. If you're doing news workflow, you are most probably still post-producing in HD, so there is some downscaling operations that would be required on that. I think that the content coming from the smartphones especially is the most complicated to deal with, as there are many situations, many different devices to create this content.
Harald, traditionally an enterprise transcoder like Capella or in the former times Carbon, they were more meant for really professional codec containers. How did that change, and do you feel that this change is a dynamic change? So do the developers in that surrounding also accept this kind of non-professional codecs and containers? And sources more, maybe that's better, the right way to ask.
Yes, of course, the evolution of professional transcoders, as said with the example of Capella FTC, it definitely went into a direction where the majority of non-professional formats is also supported using the correct methods, which also can mean to use non-professional methods, for example, instead of licensing each codec separately from main concept, you just use the available libraries from libav codec, FFmpeg, or something like that. Capella definitely learned from that, and they implemented it like that, yes.
A big topic always is also metadata. What kind of metadata can you take from these non-professional sources?
Generally, from these non-professional sources, we will have the minimum set of technical metadata. These devices are not designed that for workflows where you would have some metadata in advance of the shooting, like you can do with some Panasonic or Sony professional cameras, where you have some options to enrich the content even before it is created, or have some more broadcast-oriented metadata available as part of the media file. So basically, with content shot by non-professional devices, you will get I would say the basic set of technical metadata. One thing that is interesting is that almost all of these devices now are geolocating what you do. So that's a benefit for them. You can have this metadata as part of the media file that is recorded. The problem of this geolocation metadata is how to store it, how to reuse it in different environments. But that's another challenge, a very interesting one, I must say, to do something with this metadata. The rest is basically, yes, technical metadata about the files.
And Harald, also going a bit more into your professional background, less with the non-professional sources. What have you experienced in terms of challenges with professional sources? Because I'm assuming there are also challenges in transcoding.
Of course, there are challenges in transcoding. Professional sources. Well, one of the most obvious things that we have on a daily basis is files that do not match or only partly match specifications, which basically comes back to a misinterpreted standard. Or some vendors just putting their own specific stuff into the files. Often we have just a corruption of the file, so probably a not 100% transferred file, or a defective disk or something like that. And of course, we have very often just human-caused troubles like wrong settings in manual processing steps and a lack of knowledge when defining the settings.
So what I've learned also working with both of you with a professional background is that, for example, Woody, the products are often used from non-professional technicians, but in the background you have the complexity. How do you hide that actually from a less professional user?
Yeah, they are professional users generally, but they are not technical users, not necessarily technical
Very
users.
diplomatic.
Please do not offend our users saying they are
right.
not professionals. They are.
I'm sorry.
Sorry to correct you, but yeah, non-technical users, of course, we need to simplify things for them, because otherwise this is a nightmare. That the first thing we need to address is that how to deal with all these kind of sources in a single solution, because previously we had one solution per source format, or solutions only handling professional source formats. As Harald said, this has changed, and now, especially at Woody, we are offering one solution Intuit Access to manage the ingest of all these non-professional sources, and not only the video, but also the audio, the images in the same workflow. So that is simplifying things. On the technical side, what we are doing to ensuring the quality of the result, and to ensuring that at the end the content is standardized, is that we are analyzing the source files, detecting the aspect ratio, detecting the rotation in case of a smartphone, because there are several ways to hold the smartphone while you are shooting. Of course, detecting also the formats, the audio, the video formats, and preparing everything to make sure that the target file that will be created is at the expected format. That's one thing, but has also not destroyed the source in terms of quality, in terms of orientation, aspect ratio, because of course it's not just about having a professional file. At the end, it has to look like the source file and what was expected by the person who has made the shot. So that's a very important thing happening in the background, of course hidden from the user. And for the users, we have very intuitive user interface where they can display the metadata that are available, preview the content, that is important, preview the content properly. If it's vertical, preview it vertically. If not, preview it with the right orientation. And also this intuitive UI is very important to enrich the content with metadata before it goes through the general workflow.
And Harald, going a bit more in a bigger scope, when we talk about workflow orchestration, how can we organize handling such problematic sources we've been talking a lot about in a more automatic way in a bigger surrounding?
Well, as you say, using a kind of workflow orchestration, a workflow system, of course, enables you to react with some flexibility on the different problems. And we have some workflow automations in that area. The bases are typically analyze the source file for some special errors, or decide if you want to keep with the original file or you want to give it to some processing step. In that analyzing step, of course, there can be different direct analysis, like, are you a file from software XY or from camera XY? And so this is the thing an ecosystem with a workflow engine allows you to do. It allows you to flexibly insert specific tests and decide if you want to go with the original version of the file or you want to apply some corrections. So it's very, very exact in details.
And when do you, I don't know if it's so easy to say in general, but when do you advise for a manual interaction?
Well, there are certain cases where you cannot really have a machine detecting the problem. Basic examples are like the aspect ratio, where you cannot have a machine decide if the aspect ratio of an SD file was 4:3 or 16:9. There is just no real way to analyze the video content and say if it's 4:3 or not. So I need a human in this analyzing step. And also there are, of course, different other problematics. One of the most prominent ones might be HDR color information. That's a new problem that we face, but it's exactly the same as with the 4:3 flag in an SD file. A lot of HDR files are actually missing the HDR information, so a machine cannot automatically convert the original color to the target color without losing too much information or creating just a crappy picture. So that's when you use a human in your workflow, actually.
And is there a certain point where you have to decide to not take the source also in a new surrounding? Because I imagine in some surroundings you can just shoot it again, but in a new surrounding, it's just the moment has passed.
Exactly.
But can you put that down on a kind of technical decision?
I didn't get it because of acoustic problems.
Okay, sorry. I said there's a moment where you decide not to take a source anymore because you can't recover it.
That can actually happen. I mean, the guys that are on the cutting system have different methods to come around it, like make the picture smaller and only show a special area of the picture. But yes, it can definitely happen that you just cannot go live or you cannot broadcast some material. Sometimes you can then still apply some very smart repairing mechanism, trying to recreate the picture. But in some cases, the picture can be lost as well, yeah. That can happen.
Aurélien, how do you deal with this kind of out-of-spec or kind of unique files?
There is no general recipe, fortunately, or fortunately, otherwise people would not need us anymore. But what we are trying to do is that we are working based on what our customers are experiencing. So first we are trying to get samples, because of course we cannot have all the shooting devices of the world in our lab. So we are really gathering samples. talking to the customers to see where they are struggling mainly, what are the most important struggles that they are experiencing with this content, and then work on the files to see what can be done, what can be analyzed automatically, how we can automatically correct some errors, or just interpret properly some metadata to make the good decision during the media processing without asking the user, because of course that's all about making this happening automatically and avoiding the human step that is, as Aaron mentioned before, sometimes necessary, but most of the time we are trying to avoid that by integrating in our analysis algorithm and processing algorithm the required steps to correct the files. But yeah, the first thing we need to work on is samples of what is going wrong, and then we can work from there.
And Harald, in speaking in Capella language, what does the software support to analyze troubled sources?
Well, I already mentioned before, for analyzing troubled sources, there are basically very detailed methods how you can inspect the original metadata of the file, technical metadata. And you can also analyze some various picture scenes, like how much black is on the start and kind of this kind of stuff. But I think the power lies in being able to dynamically react on certain metadata that is part of the source file.
Okay, opening a bit the view to the industry in general. As the transcoders as well as the ingest tools, they develop a lot of amazing things. Also, the editing softwares are changing and are getting better. From what I understood is that they are also accepting more and more source files. So is this, let's call it harmonizing or repairing or recovering at the ingest or during transcoding really needed, Aurélien? Or are we getting more and more obsolete in that surrounding?
Yeah, that's a good question. Indeed, the editing softwares are becoming more and more open to multiple formats, to multiple flavors, and at least you can put it in your timeline. But putting it in your timeline is not a guarantee that everything will go well at the end when you will export this timeline as a finished file. So doing the correction, the necessary correction and the standardization during the ingest process gives you the benefit and the guarantee that your file will be properly standardized in your shared environment, and that then it can be used in any context for any editing project without necessarily someone applying effects on the timeline, because we should also consider that more and more, especially for news, the editing is not done by experienced editors, and sometimes done by the journalists themselves. So there is a high interest in standardizing things in advance to get proper content in your central storage and in your central environment. Also for the archiving process, you know that what you will archive has been standardized, so can easily be reused in the future. And also, I think that there is again the topic of the metadata. What if you just bring everything in your editing system without standardizing a bit the metadata, enriching the content, describing it at the beginning of the workflow, you will soon have problems managing this content on your storage and all these various files from various sources. So I think having a process, automated or manual, that is standardizing the content at the beginning of the workflow is really the key to have the serenity, to save time for the support teams, to reduce the risk of mistakes, of human mistakes during the editing, and so on. So it still has a high value.
Harald, do you agree a house format for a broadcaster is still up to date?
Sorry, didn't get the question.
That was I switched over to Harald, asking whether No worries. Whether he thinks that a house format for a broadcaster is still something up to date?
You ask because of Aurélien mentioned the cutting systems, the editing suites are getting more and more open for the different file formats. Having a defined standard in that you basically work enables you to avoid a huge number of different problems. For example, if your project managers need to buy some new ingest servers, if you have a defined format in your broadcast area, then they don't go and buy just anything that comes with any format and that you probably need to transcode or color correct after after ingest. Also, it of course guarantees kind of that all of your devices can interchange with each other. So it's not about only cutting, it's about the playout, it's about the ingest, it's about the archiving, and also applying kind of forensic high-speed workflows, like just getting a piece out of a file can be done extremely fast if you know what your format is. If you don't know, everything might be a little more itchy and you have trouble there and there. So yes, it's a good thing to have a house format.
So just to differentiate, Aurélien, so this is relevant for a news workflow, correct?
These issues of non-professional devices, non-professional sources are mainly affecting news workflow. That's true, but it's not only news. Now we see that applying also for sports, for reality TV, because of course all these sources are additional sources. So this is content. This is additional content that broadcasters want to use. So generally, it will apply more and more to all the domains. Some are a little bit preserved from that right now. But what we were telling in the session earlier is that now even documentaries, which are generally very conservative about that, are shooting with smartphones. So it's really affecting all the areas. And what we also see more and more is the growing importance of user-generated content. User-generated content has been, by definition, shot by anyone, anywhere. So this user-generated content coming into workflows is even increasing that issue or that need of proper handling of non-professional sources.
And Harald, these non-professional sources, how relevant are they in archiving or publishing workflows?
Come again, please.
No worry. How relevant are these non-professional sources in archiving or publishing workflows?
Basically, you cannot really use both, because when you put something to an archive, you want to make sure that it plays in 150 years as well. So you cannot just put anything there. Of course you can, but there is no guarantee that in 50 years every player will still support the file, or any player will do. The same is on the distribution side. So you cannot just give any format to all the different devices out there. They just won't support it. So of course you want to normalize something before you go to archive, and you want to deliver a defined format to all the platforms or whatever you deliver outside.
Okay. Sadly, we have to come to an end here because our time is limited, and there are many other sessions which are super interesting. However, I would have loved to continue. I think there is a lot of knowledge with Harald and Aurélien. Thank you very much, Aurélien and Harald, for joining this session.
Thank you.
And please, everyone, join Harald or Aurélien, or even together, for maybe a personal interaction, a personal discussion about this topic. I'm sure for a lot of you this is quite interesting or even super relevant in a daily business. So thank you very much for staying with us. Please check our other sessions. And as said, Aurélien and Harald, they are separately also available for one-on-one conversations. Thank you very much.